had this huge, enormous shared experience that you just can't even put words to. And yet, within the midst of this huge, enormous experience together, we also have very individual stories within it. And so I was asked to share this morning a little bit of our story and what the Lord did through this experience for us. We were one of the very few who did not lose our home. We were here that night. And we rode out the storm in the basement with Willard and Betty Olinger. And so our experience was a little different. We knew the storm was intense and very bad, but we didn't have the experience of having the house taken from above us. But we came out, and Willard was so worried about his daughter Christy on Main Street, and we couldn't get a hold of them. And so Willard's about to strike out, and I said, Tony, we can't let Willard go across town by himself. And so we grabbed flashlights, and we started walking across town with him, and I remember how quiet it was and strange, and you begin to hear people whispering and sounds and the sirens and the lightning, and we got about a block and a half, and the lightning flashed, and we were like, oh, it's gone. It's gone. And so Tony and I spent that night, Tony spent the night all around town trying to help people, and I spent the night at the parking lot at Dillon's trying to comfort anyone I could and some of the kids that we ministered to. And then we went home that night and tried to sleep a little bit. And then the next morning we got up and we're out and about, and an officer said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, we live here." And he said, "You have to get out of town." And so we went home and we packed a couple of bags and came to the road, and we were supposed to head east, and Tony headed west. And he went straight to the teen center. And those of you who knew what we did down there, we took an old building and turned it into a teen center, and spent about 6 years working side by side with kids of this community, and it will always be a very special place in our hearts. There was a huge volume of kids from this community that poured energy and time into that, and we did it side by side, and had so many kids there. And we sat there, and my husband's digging through rubble, because that's all there was. There was nothing there. The cement slab we had put down linoleum for some bathrooms. Even that was sheared off. I mean, there was nothing there. And I remember at one point just burying my head in my arms and thinking, I can't look at anything anymore. Let's get out of town. So finally we drove out. And I remember a week later, I think it was a week later, when we had this community service, and each of us were to share something from the Ministerial Alliance, and all I felt impressed to say was to the youth in the community, hey, Tony and I aren't going anywhere, and somehow, some way, we're going to rebuild the teen center. And then it struck me a couple days later, wait a minute, I probably need board approval for that. And I began to pray really fervently that our board would come alongside us and agree to rebuild. The entire experience, I remember that summer just feeling so lost. And the one normal for Tony and I was we were completely consumed with how do we minister to the kids of Kiowa County? And that was the one norm for us, because that's what we always did. How do we minister to the kids of Kiowa County? And that was our one normal. And then we spent the next 3 years with our offices at Barclay College and this process of rebuilding. And there's so many things that each of us could express that this experience did. But the number one thing for me was as we rebuilt the teen center, I remember standing on the second floor one night, standing there visualizing it finished. And being so grateful for the huge number of people that came alongside us to make it a reality. And I remember standing there thinking, you know what? It's true. Nothing is impossible. And this whole experience taught me that with God, if He says go, nothing is impossible. We can do anything that He asks or calls us to do. And so this whole experience has built my faith. And I believe in Kiowa County with all of my heart, and I believe it's a very special place. And I believe that God has more for us. And I believe as a community we can do anything. And we're expanding as an organization. We're looking at 12 counties. And when I go into other counties, I tell them, you know what? If you come together, we can do anything. Small towns have the ability to come together and do absolutely anything. So this experience built my faith.